Sabrina and I have been friends since meeting and eventually graduating together at John Carroll. Nowadays, Sabrina is passionately involved in the cannabis industry and has given some of her time today to talk about it. Just as a reminder, you can check the timestamps to jump to something that interests you, but the entire podcast is very informative on the topic. Enjoy. So, I guess the first question is like after John Carroll, we both graduated chemistry. So, how did you get into like this industry? Like, did it start right after college, or did it start like when we were in college?
It started more in college. I also went to the Cleveland School of Cannabis. I don't know if I remember talking to you about that, but I was taking classes at John Carroll alongside classes at Cleveland School of Cannabis. So I was going to Cleveland School of Cannabis on the weekends from like 8 to 4, and then weekdays I studied at John Carroll. So I kind of went that route, and I started going there like junior year.
Junior year? Okay, because I remember reading your I don't know if it was like a textbook or like a PDF of like a textbook, but when we were studying for one of our tests, I remember reading that, and it was really cool stuff. Like, it was stuff that like that's one of the things that once you sort of entered that realm and I started taking it seriously, I realized like the science is just as concrete as like any other science that we would be studying. Like, it's not like, I want to say like the 70s take of it where it's like weed is bad, psychedelics are bad. Like, this is like not a science. This is just like, lazy, whatever it is. But like reading that textbook, I was like, there's real science. There's no like guesses. People care about this stuff. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a total science. That's what I got into it. I think I was more drawn to the organic chemistry part, because I was like, yo, you can extract the oils. You can, go like run it through steam distillation and run it through all that stuff. And I was like, this is literally organic chemistry. And then when I took instrumental analysis with you, I was like, whoa, it's the same thing, because you do have to test this stuff anyway. You have to put it through HPLC. You got to put GCMS, ICOES. Like, it's such a science. And then the whole research aspect of it, that's literally a whole nother realm. That's biochemistry and like that whole research side. It's a total science.
Okay. So when you got into like the industry, what did you enter in like research, or did you enter in like the HPLC, GCMS, like the actual like instrumentation?
No, I entered in the extraction side. So like the organic chemistry side. Yeah. That's what I was drawn to the first, because I did a lot of research, with companies out in Oregon and California. And because they're about 10 years ahead of us, like us on the East Coast, we're way behind in the whole cannabis scene. They're way in front of us. So I kind of, reached out to companies and I was like, hey, what kind of departments do you have? Like, I just emailed every single company that I could. And they were like, yeah, we have a processing department. We have an extraction lead. We have a director of product development, which is formulation, which is more science. So yeah, I kind of got into the extraction side right off the bat, because that's what's cool. That's when you get your dabs, your vape pens, your edibles, like your actual products that are not the flower. That's all science.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back just a little bit, when you said that we're like 10 years behind, basically, is that like a technological or is that like a political delay?
Kind of both. Technological, because they already have cannabis Ubers and restaurants and lounges. And also they have these tax laws put into place which help education. Like, Colorado just hit the like $1 billion in tax like last year. Okay. So it is both for sure.
Okay. So maybe this is a question for a little bit later, but is it more of like a bureaucratic delay, or is it like a cultural delay? Like, what do you think is the bottleneck to us reaching that point?
That's a really good question. I'd say a little bit of both, because people out there, like, for example, the first law that was passed in America was California in 1996. That's when I was born. Oh, wow. So California passed medical marijuana, and that's medical marijuana in 1996. That was the first law in all of America. So, and look where it's at now. It's taken from 1996 to now to get to where it's at.
Yeah, it's
And
insane.
while Ohio, we passed medical in 2018.
Hmm.
So, it is kind of both.
Okay. Um, Before we get into sort of what it was like working for the industry, what's like your, not like your pitch, but what's your take on the healing properties and like the medical validity of medical marijuana?
It's legit.
Okay.
It's real. But basically every single body is different. And this is a whole other part of the science aspect. We have these systems in our bodies that are called endocannabinoid systems, and they're different throughout everyone's body. And our body naturally produces molecules that mimic THC, CBD, and hundreds of other cannabinoids. They're called like 2AP, one's called anandamide, and they literally bind the same receptors that THC and CBD are bind to. So some people are low on these molecules, some people are high on these molecules, and what cannabis does is kind of balance them out, and that could help with serotonin levels, the your pain levels, sleep levels. Basically, it helps balance out your bodies no matter what is wrong with you or not wrong with you. So everyone's different, which
All
is
right.
really
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's definitely cool.
yeah.
So I know that one of the big pushes for medical marijuana, and this is kind of timely because whoever was behind oxytocin just pleaded guilty to
Yeah.
pushing the opioid crisis. So I know
Yeah.
that like a lot of the people who like lobby for medical marijuana, like I mean, honestly, when you think about this just on paper, it makes more sense that you would go for the drug that is like more therapeutic in a sense, less addictive, um, less dangerous.
Mhm.
So it's cool to see that a lot of the big pharma like opioid side is getting held accountable,
Yeah.
and more knowledge is being spread on I guess the much better alternative because it's getting less demonized. I think one of the biggest things for people like in my vicinity, I'll keep it not very specific, but the people around me started to come around after CBD was I guess legalized. I don't know, was it legalized technically?
So what the cannabis industry kind of did was outsmart the federal government in a way. So the federal government is like, well, medical marijuana or marijuana is a controlled substance. You cannot have it. So what the cannabis industry did was like, okay, here's hemp. Hemp is not on that bill. It's not, illegal. So they took CBD from that to start making the products. And then each state could have its own laws. For example, Ohio made CBD illegal for like 2 years or something. And then the Farm Bill, which was a federal bill, had to come out and say something. So they basically said, okay, all hemp is legal only if it is under 0.03% THC levels. So
Okay.
basically, that's how it started.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And CBD, for those who wouldn't know, is the non-psychoactive, one of the non-psychoactive components, right?
Yeah. There's like 120 cannabinoids in hemp and cannabis. Hemp and cannabis is ultimately the same plant. There's different varieties, but it's kind of like it goes back to the like genome. Like at one point, cannabis and hemp kind of split off, and one started producing high THC levels, and one started producing low THC levels. So it kind of turned into cannabis and hemp.
Okay.
Yeah, the
That's
CBD is
cool.
non-psychoactive, but has a lot of healing properties like anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety, helps you fall asleep more. And again, it all goes back to like how your body is. Not everyone's the same.
Yeah, I started using like the CBD like cream, and that was like sort of useful. But then when I actually started smoking like actual CBD carts from this place like in Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
it took a while because I know, well, when you smoke CBD, it's supposed to build up in your system,
Mm-hmm.
from what I've heard. But after like a week, I could tell that I was like much less like irritable. It was like very tiny things, and it was cool. Like I don't know, like I think people should experiment with it because there's I don't know any dangers of trying it at all, especially
Totally.
because it's not psychoactive. So yeah, so
Definitely. method.
Yeah. So I guess now that we have like the a good like standing, so what was your experience like working for the industry?
This is a broad question. It was good. It's good and bad,
Okay.
and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Well,
Some parts,
can I start off by saying,
yeah.
what was it like graduating as a chemistry student and working there in that realm first? We'll start there.
Okay. Right off the bat, I thought it was so cool. I was like, this is amazing. I have so much freedom. I'm working with cannabis every day. I remember going in for my first interview and I was walking up to the building and I just got this whiff of marijuana. And I was like, oh, like this is the industry I'm gonna be in. This is so cool. And it felt surreal. And I walked in and it was just like not like the type of marijuana that you'll smell driving down the street. Like this is like flowery, beautiful, like it's like just an art. It just smells so good and I could spray it on my body. and and yeah, the first couple weeks, it was rough. I love the team that I worked with. It was my superior. She is amazing. I talk to her now almost every day. And she was our leader, and then it was me and two other people right off the bat. And I was expecting to come in, you know, people teach me and like show me the lab, show me all the equipment, show me everything. I walk in and like the walls weren't even built for the lab. I walked in and they're like, okay, this is going to be our kitchen. This is going to be our processing center. This is going to be this. So right off the bat, I was like, okay, we got a lot of work to do. This is going to be hard. So the first 2 weeks, we were kind of hands off. We like me and the two other people, we just sat in basically like these little cubicle office areas. We made training material for the new employees. We made handbooks. We made safety materials. We wrote SOPs. We did all like that hard work because we came in this company before it was even registered a processing company. So we were there while the state were going through inspections and then to grant us our license. So we like helped build tables, we helped put stickers on the walls, it was so cool seeing an entire lab being built out and like knowing you're a part of it. Mm-hmm. By the same time, I was confused. I was like, I'm right out of college, this chemistry degree. And at first I was like, I'm not really using that right now. But once we started to hire more people, get in the flow of things, you know, we started to use extraction equipment. We started to make formulas, I started to do math a lot, you know, for like dosaging and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is where I can finally use my knowledge.
Yeah. Cool.
That was great. I actually love the first part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So how similar was it to an actual like chemistry lab that you did in college?
It was really similar to organic chemistry, but on a bigger scale, much bigger scale.
Okay. So even like the atmosphere, like you doing distillations and stuff like that, like
so imagine going into an OChem lab and there's like different hoods. We have basically one big room with like one hood, and think of your like rotary evaporators. They're like this big and they can sit on a desk. Well, these are like huge, 6 feet tall, going through liters and liters of oils, and that's how every company is. Like that's how every cannabis company is. They use these big scales, big distillation setups. It's really cool, and that's what scared me because I was like, okay, I saw this on a lower scale, and now I'm testing my knowledge on a bigger scale, and also a product that's worth like 20 grand. So it's like
that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess when did because I know a little bit about like what has sort of transpired across like your career so far. So I guess like what sort of I guess things were you exposed to about like the politics of the industry after you started working?
You know, right when I got in and before I even got in, I was sort of in like the honeymoon phase. Like, wow, I'm working for a cannabis company. You know, this is so great. And then right when I started to get in there, I was like, okay, I'm seeing how it's run now. And then I had to get really familiar with the laws. So the Ohio Revised Code, I forget what it's called, like 3967 or something is the medical marijuana bill. I basically had to know that law inside and out so I wouldn't do anything wrong. And looking at the law and the regulations, I just got really pissed off about how expensive it is, first of all, to just apply for a license. It's 20 grand to apply for a license, and that's granted you don't even have the promise that you're going to get accepted or not.
Yeah.
And then it's just a lot of work. So a part of me is like, okay, people are either in it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. And I saw that right off the bat. I mean, at this place I was working with, within the first 3 months, 5 people quit. And I was like, what is going, like, that's when I was like, what is going on here? Like something bigger is going on. But I, wanted to keep my job. I wanted to keep learning. I wanted to be a good employee. And I was like, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to ask anybody. I'm just going to observe.
Okay.
And these are all from my own observations. And I take rumors, like I don't like rumors, so I don't like talking to people, especially if it's at work. So yeah, when I started to see people quit, I was like, all right, something bigger is going on here.
Okay. So were you tipped off by, like, was there a single event that you sort of like were picking up the breadcrumbs beyond people quitting?
Just like random little nitpicky stuff. Like we had 3 managers, the CEO, the VP of operations, and the VP of sales. They, were always in and out as managers should be. And they would just come in, and do nitpicky stuff. And I saw how they treated my employees or like my peers. I saw how they treated my superior, the director of the entire system. I saw how they treated her, and I was like, this is not right at all. For example, so remember how I said I started with 2 people? One of the guys I started with actually got promoted to a lead. And I saw the VP of sales come in and just totally disrespect him in front of the entire team. I forgot what he said, but he basically said, shut up right now. You are lying. Like he didn't believe him. And he walked out and literally everyone was like, what the heck's going on? And I was like, I do not want to be talked to like that. This is awful.
Right.
And I just saw how hot-headed he was, and basically upper management they just treated everyone like shit, in my opinion. Even though they are like after we do a really big deal. Like for example, if we have to send out like a mass amount of flour to a dispensary and we need all hands on deck to package till like 8:00 at night, afterwards they're like, okay guys, great job, thank you so much. And then the next day they'll ask for us again. So, and then they'll talk to us like, which it's just a lot, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the vibe that I'm getting, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that like the upper management people, like the sales titles, like these dudes basically came in without the same passion as all of you guys.
I can't say yes or no to that because I really don't know them. Like, okay. I don't know who they are, but from my opinion, it seemed that way. And it's it just sucks because like you can treat your employees so much better. And from the way I got it, they were in completely other like different industries before, which is normal because like this is a fairly new industry that we're in right now. I just didn't see the passion behind it at all. All I saw were, okay, let's make more numbers, let's get more money, let's produce more. And they even gave up the quality of the product just to get the numbers and just to get their quota.
Well,
and
sucks.
That's when I like, now that I'm talking, I have all these floods of memories coming back to me.
Okay.
There was this one point where our formulations were wrong because we are a new company. That means that there are new testing labs because it's a new program. For every product that an Ohio place makes, it has to be third party tested. So, the third party testing place is brand new. They don't know what they're doing just yet. It's all new. So our formulations were coming in wrong. And, the CEO and the VP was like, listen, like these formulations are wrong. What are you guys doing wrong? And we're like, okay, we can experiment. We could use different solvents or whatever. I don't know. And it got to the point where he didn't believe us. He thought that our formulations were wrong and our math was wrong. That he literally made us sit down with him and do like a PowerPoint on how to do basic math.
Okay.
It was so sad. It was me and it was my boss and a few other people. We were like, we could be, you know, making more product right now, but right now we're explaining to you how to go from milligrams per gram to a percentage. Like that's
Oh,
just
wow.
like that's why you hired us, dude. Like go do
Yeah.
your job, do ours. And I'm gonna plug this in real quick.
Okay.
And but yeah, it was just crazy. And that was one point. And then to see my boss, she is freaking amazing, like I said, just to see her be so torn down by this guy. Our bosses didn't believe her at all. Didn't believe me, didn't believe any other chemists or actual scientists. They didn't believe us at all.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like by nature of like a $20,000 application to your license or whatever it is. And then just like the natural startup costs that no, you know, average human being without like that sort of like capital can do. It seems like that setup sort of like creates these sort of dynamics.
Totally. And that's not just a startup cost. That is to literally send in your application to the state. That doesn't
that's absurd.
include everything else. It's crazy. Like
so
it probably costs a good $3 to $4 million to start up a good lab like that.
That's wild. So what's the difference between like applying here and starting up versus like Colorado or California?
Colorado and California have way less. First of all, their application fees are only like $100 compared to 10 grand. Florida's worse. Florida's 63 grand.
Holy shit.
The worst state to be in if you're gonna want to go the medical marijuana or cannabis route. But Colorado, Oregon, and California, they have, first of all, their demand is higher because, you know, they started right off the bat handing out licenses, and, you know, that got more consumers, which need, you know, more suppliers. So it kept rising. And it kind of got to this point where now it's like a normal business. It's almost like a restaurant business for us. You know, like if I want to go open up a restaurant, I can do that. You know, I don't need $3 million, but I do need, you know, a good amount of capital to get going.
Okay.
But not as big as the scale it is today.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, you sort of mentioned this as you were describing everything in the workplace, but what was like the straw that broke the camel's back for you and you ended up leaving?
So they got to the point, this was during like about 2.5 months, this whole formulation thing. Basically, first of all, just to build up a bunch of stuff, but this was the one point thing that got me. So basically they were like, well, we can't get these formulations right. You know, this testing site is not matching our numbers that we're putting in. So it looks like we're going to have to match theirs. So I had to over formulate just to match the numbers. So we basically did a bunch of trials, you know, with different concentrations at different, you know, levels, different dosages and stuff. And like, for example, if we're like, okay, if I want to formulate the 10 milligrams it's like 10 milligrams, the testing lab would come back at 8. And we did this all the way up to like 50 or something. So it made a trend. So basically I over formulated to hit that trend, and then the testing lab came back, and that's what we did. So I was like, first of all, that's really stupid as a business side because you're giving away free product.
Right.
So
what a mess.
Yeah, it was a big mess. And I was like, I can't believe we're doing this right now. Like, is there other options? And it really sucked for me on like a mental note because I was trained to do this, but also like I needed more help. I was like, look, we need more help. I just graduated from John Carroll.
Right.
You know, my peers are already going crazy enough to get this product in. Like, just from this one formulation standpoint, we also had so many other things going on in the background that like I couldn't get that much help. Okay. So it was me, my boss. She was awesome. She helped me a lot. And they were both just tearing us down and risking, you know, their own product and their own quality just to hit quota.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of responsibility to be put on someone that like in your position. Like that's insane.
And at one point I was like, I'm getting paid as much as a tech is. So I'm getting paid to do this as much as the person is sitting there and putting stickers on boxes. Like, I'm not the type of person to complain about that, but I was like, this, like, if someone finds out about this, I can go to jail, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, it's a higher risk.
Yeah, there's way more risk on your part. Yeah, for sure.
So I was talking to my other managers, and I was like, listen, like, is there a way that I can get promoted? Like, I don't feel like I'm being properly, what's the word, compensated, I guess. So they're like, yeah, totally. So the VP of, yeah, I think it's just the VP. He brought me in his office and was like, hey, we would love to promote you to the head of, I think, compliance for processing. And I was like, please, yes, I'd love to be the head of compliance. Like, I'm good at this. I know the law inside and out. I know how to dose correctly. Like, I'm all about quality control and all that. Please let me do that. He's like, great, cool. I will let you know more information. I was like, awesome. I can't wait to start. So the next day I emailed him. The next day I talked to him in person, and he was like, yeah. I'll like get back to you, whatever. He basically just shrugged me off and just forgot about it.
Oh wow.
And I was like, listen, is this gonna happen? He was like, yeah, like right now we're doing more stuff, It's like, you can't just tell me that and then tell me to go package 100 like components and then just do this. And it was a lot. And on top of that, I was in charge of registration for the state. Like, I felt like I had so many rules. I was in charge of formulation, in charge of registration. So for every product I formulated, I had to basically submit that to the state, the Board of Pharmacy, for approval. So I had to make sure the dosages were right, because every new registration you put in is $100. So I was trying to be like, smart about it and stuff. So that I had a lot to deal with my plate with the Board of Pharmacy, formulation, the company.
Okay.
It was a lot.
That sounds like a shit ton.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you left, what things were you feeling? Were you thinking about leaving the industry altogether? Were you thinking about like doing your own thing?
Dude, my head was just going everywhere. I'm a very empathetic person who sees all sides of everything. So a part of me empathized with these managers. I was like, I see where they're coming from. They have a higher boss before them. They have to get these quotas in. Maybe they don't mean to be mean, whatever. But then I'm like, you still have to be nice to people. So basically I was like, shoot, like, is every place like this? And I did outside research. I talked to a lot of my friends in other states, asking them. And even in Ohio, I talked to other friends that work at other processors. And they're like, yeah, dude, it's the same way here. Managers treat us like shit. They're all rich assholes who don't care about the plant. So at that point, I was like, there's a lot going on for me in my life at that point. I recently broke up with my boyfriend. I quit my job. I was like, I'm free. I could do whatever I want to do. So I wanted to go to New Mexico. That was my number one thing. I was like, I love New Mexico. My heart is still there. I freaking love it. So I reached out to this company in Taos, New Mexico. I flew out there like a week later, had a formal interview, or informal interview, should I say. It was at a bar. And the guy was like, okay, cool. Yeah, you're hired. You seem smart. Awesome.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, awesome. Like, when should we meet next? And then he's like, tomorrow I could take you on a tour. We'd love to show you around, meet everybody. I was like, that sounds so cool. Yes. So I was waiting around for this guy to text me the following day. Never texted me until like 1:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? So he called me at like 5 after he texted me. He's like, hey, sorry, I'm like running a little late. Called me at 5 and was like, hey, is it okay that we can do this tomorrow now? And I was like, I could have like gone to Santa Fe. I could have gone skiing. I could have gone all this, but I was waiting around for your ass to text me. But and I was like, at that point, I was like, do I want to work for a company like this? Like, even though that's me being nitpicky, I just came from a really disorganized company. I'm not gonna.
Right, it's a bad omen. Yeah.
And so I met with him again, and he was like, we want to offer you, this base rate, and that was lower than I was getting paid at the place before.
Oh shit.
So I was like, is there any way we can go higher? Like, I'm literally uprooting my life to come out here alone by myself. And he's like, let me talk. They did like $1 an hour higher. They wanted me to build out the entire lab, they wanted me to write all their SOPs, all their formulas, deal with the state, like deal with sales. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I just got the same vibe that like at this place was exactly how it was like that I just
Oh
left.
shit. Okay.
So I was really defeated. I was
Oh
like,
wow.
what the heck? And it was just a lot. So this is like a sign too. Like as I was driving to the airport, I passed this beautiful like little creek tucked away in these two mountains like meeting each other. And I was like, you know what? That looks really pretty. I'm gonna go over there and take a look. I drove over, took a look. I was the only one there, and I saw a bouquet of yellow roses, frozen, just like laying there. I picked it up and I was like, all right, not now. Like,
Damn.
I was like, I need to chill. Like, those yellow roses, basically, I took was a sign from God or the universe, like, bitch, calm the fuck down. You're fine. Just take a deep breath.
That's
It's
cool.
okay.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah.
Well, that's really shitty because
yeah.
like the responsibilities they gave you were like sounds like twice your rate, or at least like 1.5 times your rate. Like that's pretty absurd. What was
And
close to them, like?
it sucks. I was talking to a lot of people. I was like, should I take this for experience just to do it? And a lot of people were like, yeah, who cares? You could build it out and then quit. And then like a lot of people are like, no, like you're like worth way more than that.
Right.
It's really hard. Like I don't think about money as like like the end goal, I guess. But I just want to work for a good company. And in my gut, that was not a good company.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess like what are you doing now? Like, what are your goals right now?
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
I want to make my own company.
Okay.
All the other ones freaking suck, dude.
So how's that coming along then?
Good. So I want to start with hemp. So hemp for the state of Ohio, only I believe it's either $100 or $500. I think it's $100 to apply for a license. So I was like, cool, let's do hemp and not pay 10 grand to pay for a license for medical marijuana. Yeah, so it's called Cosmic Harvest.
Okay.
It is a hemp cultivation and processing center in Northeast Ohio. So it's going good. I have everything basically set out. I have the company that I'm going to buy my seeds from. I have my land. I have my consultant. I have basically everything that is needed.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. I'm really excited, but I don't have my license yet. So that's what I'm doing right now is I'm in the licensing process.
So that's the only thing holding you back, basically?
Yeah, and also the fact that it's almost November, so I have to wait until March to start planting. So basically time. Yeah.
Okay.
But I could prep the field for the frost. I could do a lot of stuff in the meantime.
So what is your consultant like doing? You like basically just helping you from the ground up?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know how to grow. I'm a chemist. I don't know how to grow.
Okay.
So I reached out to this consultant in Akron. He's really cool. I really want to go local. That's one thing I noticed when I was in New Mexico. I was like, wow, I really love Akron. I want to help my community. And if I want to build a business, I want to help out my community. So it just feels more sacred, I guess.
For sure.
So I hired this amazing guy, knows everything about growing and post-harvest and even sales, which is kind of cool. And then also I'm working with a consultant group called Victus.
Okay.
I actually, right after I quit, I went with them on their journey too. So, while I was in my, job searching process, I also worked for them as well. So they are a consulting group as well. Yeah, they do basically everything. They do build outs, they do cultivation, they do processing, sales, media, marketing, communications. They do everything. It's really, really cool to have them by my side. They're amazing.
Yeah. Cool.
I travel with them. Pretty cool.
So you travel with who?
With Victus. We've gone to Luxembourg in March, right before COVID shut down. Like 30 right before COVID.
Oh,
we went
wow.
to Luxembourg, yeah, to
That's cool.
have like a investor summit. So it was pretty cool to be in like a more professional setting, not in America.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So do you have a roadmap for when you're gonna like transition over to actual cannabis?
I hope in the next. That depends on if it becomes legalized federally or in the state, which I don't think it I think it'll become legalized federally before it becomes legalized within the state of Ohio. So
Okay.
basically, I'm just banking on America to legalize it.
Interesting.
If not, I just need enough capital to basically transition into cannabis. And also it depends on how my hemp is doing. If my hemp's selling really well, I might not want to, you know?
Right. Okay.
So.
Alrighty. So I guess like if you can like summarize, like piece together like the current state of the industry and like what your hopes are for it, like moving forward, what would they be?
We are on a cliff, and either we fall forward and fuck ourselves up and, you know, bust up our faces, or we fall backwards and land on a petal of flowers. You know, we're right on that cliff, and
Okay.
it's so scary. But it's people like us, honestly, having these conversations, getting the knowledge out there, telling people what is really going on in the industry. Because, like I said, America can really legalize this, and they could go by their own rules. They could say, okay, it's all up to the states, kind of like alcohol. They could do it like that. Like, okay, it's up to the states to make their own laws and stuff. It's gonna have a great divide, basically, because like it's already like that. For example, like Florida, 60 grand to apply versus California, $100 to apply.
Right.
Or we could go the route where they want to do it more medically. So America can legalize it medically and do more research, which will be cool, but also have higher regulations for like recreational.
Okay.
So that basically invites the big companies like Coca-Cola wants to come in, and all these big companies with high capital are really the only like, people that can do it, you know?
I see. Okay.
Or we go the route where we just open it up and invite, you know, people who actually care for the plant, who actually know for the plant, to grow in and like create their craft.
Okay. I see. Okay. So I guess that the industry side is sort of discussed pretty clearly. What would you say? Because I feel like there's still like a cultural shift that needs to happen for the most part. There's like a few questions that I want to ask, but I guess I'll start. Like, what do you have to say for people who like are totally against any medical use? Like, they don't view it as something that's like therapeutic.
Just because it doesn't work for you, man, it means it definitely works for other people. It's actually researched and known. Israel is probably the best country in the globe that has done the most extensive medical marijuana research. They have all these publications out. I think a lot in Britain have a lot out too. Just because it's not published in America doesn't mean, like, for example, we can't do that much research in America. Look at other countries. They're doing it. They have all these journals that are open, and it's known. Open up your eyes. Like, just because you're raised on, you know, reefer madness and stuff, like, doesn't mean that's true. Most of it's propaganda. All of it's propaganda, not most of it.
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest, I think like rational things that are against medical marijuana are really only against people under 25 smoking it because their brain isn't fully developed, which I agree with.
Yeah.
And the other one is like, and it's really like the only thing that I see is like, it's sort of like the anti-culture thing. It's that like once you smoke, there's like a stigma behind people being less productive, and like once they smoke, they don't do anything for the rest.
Totally. That's such a valid reason for people not to agree with it. That's how I feel like most like my parents and relatives are. They see people smoking weed all day and they're like, oh, he's just a stoner, you know? I'm like, mom, like he's just doing what he wants. But like all of us kind of have that thing. Like there's alcoholics, there's, you know, drug addicts, and people say that you can't get addicted to marijuana, but it's an addictive habit, I think.
I agree.
You know, it's very habitual. And in my opinion, I feel like this is with everything. Like you just need an intention. Like, why are you intaking? Why are you consuming? You know, is it going to help you for the better? If not, don't do it. You know, but also same with alcohol. Like alcohol is legal. I always make the alcohol argument with people who don't like marijuana. They're like, well,
Yeah.
like there's no there's like it can't help anyone. I'm like, neither can alcohol. But you're having a beer every day. Like,
Yeah. It's really, yeah, because if what do I want to say here? It's just a weird dichotomy. Yeah. And it's so weird how like Americans reacted to prohibition, and seeing this now, it's just weird. It's like, I wonder like how the culture would shift if like the same happened with marijuana. But yeah, cool
it is
stuff.
shifting.
It is shifting for sure,
Totally shifting. Yeah.
especially with like, I think psychedelics are shifting pretty quick too. But I don't know if it's like a cultural shift. I feel like it's more. Actually, what's your take on that? Like, what do you think? Where do you think the epicenter of like psychedelic shift? I know this is not topical, but like in terms of psychedelics, where do you think the change is coming from there?
I think the change is coming from big nonprofits. There's this really good one called MAPS, and they are doing actual research on like MDMA, psychedelics, on mental illnesses like PTSD, anxiety, depression. And from what I see, it's all over the news, especially because like I'm into like LinkedIn and stuff, so I see that more. There's publications being out, or they're coming out like every week. So the more I see it, the more I share with people, and they're like, "Wow, like that could work." So I think it's really these companies that are doing more research on the medical side.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a interview with Rick Dublin, the CEO of Maps,
Mm-hmm.
the whatever the creator of Maps.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because I mean, like they're doing really well. They're doing like their trials with MDMA, and they look like promising. And this is just interesting to me, but he built houses after he uh, dropped out of school for like 10 years before he did anything with psychedelics. And then like he went to college, and then he found like his mentor, and then he started up Maps, but like he did nothing for 10 years, and now he's doing like society changing work in this regard, which is just like, and it should be it's inspiring to me. I think it should be inspiring to a lot of people. It's like,
That is. That's totally inspiring. There's this one company. They're also a nonprofit. They're called the Heroic Hearts Project. I'm actually an ambassador for them.
okay.
So what they do is I guess, we find veteran organizations and different veterans or active military people who have major PTSD, and we help fund them to go to ayahuasca camps. So they go
Okay.
on these ayahuasca retreats, and it basically they're almost healed, or they have the tools now to heal themselves. Like modern medicine, we really put a band-aid on the bullet hole and don't get to the root of the trauma. While I think psychedelics help you actually reach that trauma spot and kind of reverse psychology almost to almost help you heal yourself. But also, this can be used in conjunction with modern medicine. Like, I'm not knocking modern medicine, it's great, but also it's not healing anything.
Right. I know that a lot of people who do have, what do they call it, like reactive PTSD or reflexive PTSD, whatever it is, to psychedelics, are the people who fail to like integrate whatever they experienced on that particular trip. So I know that, like you're saying, if you pair it up with like CBT or some other form of therapy, that's where the results really come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was watching a stream with a streamer who killed himself. His name was Reckful. He was depressed, and he ended up killing himself. Like, I think like a few years after this experience. But he said that he went to Amsterdam, and he took psilocybin, and he was just able to confront basically these things without feeling that like fear. And whoever was interviewing him was talking about how people who still have like PTSD, or people who do develop PTSD from these trips, you can take MDMA, and that also helps you face like the PTSD that you get from that. So it's like two peas in a pod basically, and those two things are getting tested on more as the days go on, which is really exciting. So like I'm excited to see what's all possible.
Yeah, to see where it goes. And especially now that this is so new, I always get like scared and weary. I'm like, what if the psychedelic like industry turns out the same as medical marijuana.
Oh shit.
I know, but I don't think it will be. I think, we know what we've done. I think we're being very careful with psychedelics, like the industry as a whole, to kind of baby steps and not just jump right in.
Yeah, I feel like the utility of medical marijuana is pretty clearly stated, and people take it pretty seriously, especially people who are in the industry. And then the people who, I feel like, if the psychedelics become like legal and destigmatized, I feel like there's going to be like, it requires like a massive respect about them before you go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be something that you can just like, because I personally haven't tried it yet, so I don't even know I'm speaking on like you have to go into it like this, but it's just like the nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
But you are totally right though. Like you almost have to have a respect for it. You definitely have to have a respect for it. That's why like these ayahuasca camps, like ayahuasca and alternative medicine and psychedelics and medical marijuana, they've been around since ancient times, literally ancient times. And the people who have natively been taking these medicines have a mass amount of respect for it, more than like we can even understand.
Right.
So that's why they're being sent to these retreat centers so they could basically consume with the natives, and they'll tell them like, okay, this is why we respect this is why you're feeling like this. So it's almost like a home thing. It's not, it's almost like a lion is not trapped in a cage in Ohio. It's like you actually go to Africa and experience that lion.
Right. Yeah, same thing goes with Native Americans and peyote, right? That's
Totally.
like a huge cultural like cornerstone, and like they respect it, but like isn't it illegal technically?
Peyote, it's illegal, but also there's a religious purpose to it. So there's some sites in like Arizona and stuff that are legal because of like spiritual purposes.
That's wild. Like because that could easily be applied to like all these other things, but like
Yeah, totally.
damn. Okay.
Same with ayahuasca. I think there's some places I want to say, I don't want to get this wrong, somewhere in California, I think, that are legal with ayahuasca.
I have heard of these like retreats, but I heard that like there are a lot of people I mean, this rings true or rings similar to your description about like the state of Ohio's medical industry, but a lot of these ayahuasca retreats are also sort of like cash grabs for people who don't really know, like, or who aren't really passionate about the entire thing. So I was watching an interview with this other dude, two dudes who went to Harvard, and like they're both in like the psychedelic industry, and he said that he only knows like 3 in the entire country, or like in the entire world basically, that he trusts that he would actually go on, and he's been on like 14 or something. So yeah, there's a long road ahead, but I'm excited for it because yeah.
It's so cool. I could talk about this for hours. Like, I'm so happy that we are doing this because I just want to let the whole world know about all this. Like, what the future lies ahead, psychedelics and marijuana. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think the disappointing thing to me is that all these things like in a public space, like if this was like something that was like newly discovered now, I feel like everyone would be super excited about it. But like with the war on drugs and like everything like in the 60s and 70s, like it did such a good job at making this stuff seem like such like a shithead activity, and like like a low life thing, that it's like it has to sort of be kept under wraps, and it has to, I mean, in the eyes of some people. So that part kind of sucks, but I mean, something like that just can't be like buried forever. Like something like that, something that powerful is definitely going to come up eventually. So I have no like doubt in my mind that's going to get vindicated in some way. But yeah, dude, we should do a separate podcast where we talk about psychedelics. Let's do that.
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, we have to get learned on it. We'll do our own research, come back. That'll be fun. Okay, so Sabs, we talked about a lot of cool stuff, and I appreciate having you on here. If there's anything you want to plug, I know you talked about Victus and your Cosmic-ish, so if you have like a pitch real quick before we dip, go right ahead.
Yeah, so anyone who's interested in getting into the cannabis industry but doesn't really know how, look up Victus, Victus Capital Venture, sorry, on LinkedIn or Google. It'll come right up. Or just have CK give you my number or something or email. Cosmic Harvest platforms are coming up soon. So be in touch and look out for that.
Hell yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. If you guys watched this far, I appreciate it. Otherwise, until next time.